where does it all end here? I mean, neither side is looking to back down.
And I wouldn't expect either side to back down. I think, particularly as it relates to leadership here in this country, we're looking for China in particular to come to the negotiating table. The broad-based concern that I have, though, is that consumers are going to start feeling some pain, and in particular our farmers are experiencing a real sense of trepidation and concern at this moment in time.
Advisor Costello now telling us that there's been hardly any conversation between the two sides. So how do you find a breakthrough in this situation?
Well, I wish I had an answer for that question. I think as a member of Congress, I'm sitting back like everyone else, wishing I could lean into this and be a productive voice. But this is being led by the administration. And to Mr. Kudlow's point, unless and until we do see some sort of breakthrough with the Chinese, we're in a position where they retaliate, we retaliate, they retaliate back, we retaliate back. If I could shift for just a moment, I am hearing some good reports about some progress on renegotiating NAFTA. As it relates to Canada and Mexico. There's so much happening in the trade realm right now. It's a little bit can be a little confusing and complicating to deal with. But that's where I think we're going to see some productivity. But I don't think that the Chinese are going to just roll over, and that's why I'm really concerned long term about some of the pain that our farmers are going to feel, given how much time it took to develop a lot of the relationships that they have in the export markets.
Right, and the administration announcing that $13 billion worth of aid package to agricultural states last week with regards to coming from the USDA. But I want to pick up where you went with NAFTA and also with China, because it does, to your point, Congressman, seem like it's this dizzying. There's a deal, there's no deal. They're talking, they're not talking. I mean, it's hard to keep up. But what is exactly the end goal? And do you feel, when you look at the economic indicators, low unemployment, a growth in the second quarter GDP, as well as declining economic indicators in China, that the U.S. actually might have the upper hand against the Chinese?
I think that's an excellent point, because a lot of folks are not familiar with how precarious China may be economically at the moment. I think we do have the upper hand at this temporary moment. But again, we're not a state economy. I mean, China can do things in terms of its devaluing its currency that we cannot do. This $13 billion is a Band-Aid for us. Let's be clear about that. So there's just a lot of moving parts here. I think over the long term, what's the goal? The goal is something that everybody in this country can agree with, and that is to reduce trade barriers. The president is right when he talks about the fact that countries are getting the better end of the deal with us. We pay more than they do in order to get our products into their market. And so he's right to seek to renegotiate, but there's a lot of pain right now, and not knowing when we're going to get to the end, to the finish line, is something that's very disconcerting. And a lot of us in Congress want to know what that strategy is and how we get there. I will also add to this, the president tweeted, we don't need weak people in Congress questioning this or saying that this is a bad thing. I don't take that personally. I think what he's really trying to do is tell other countries that he's not going to roll over because of political pressure here at home. I actually think that that's an appropriate thing for the president to do. But it is also appropriate for member of Congress and U.S. senators to speak with some care and be concerned about what is happening in their districts across the country with a lot of small businesses. Right. That this was not priced into their supply chain costs. They have bank loans. They have right. consumers that they're dealing with, and so there's a lot of uncertainty at the moment.
It's that political uncertainty that I hear so much from business leaders when they ask about what's going on in Washington. Let me ask you about something else, though, Congressman, because there's been some interesting developments ahead of the midterm elections with the Koch brothers. I want to pull up a quote from the RNC chairwoman, Ronna Romney McDaniel, who's told me earlier this week, quote, "Some groups who claim to support conservatives forego their commitment when they decide their business interests are more important than those of the country or party. This is unacceptable." That, of course, has to deal with this new escalation in the feud with the Koch network. How important are the Koch brothers to the Republican Party in terms of the midterm elections?
Well, full disclosure, I don't believe I have ever received a contribution from the Koch brothers. I think I should probably say that.
Yes,
they're very important. They're very important to a lot of Republicans across the country, but they are an outside organization. They're probably the single most sophisticated political operation outside of a political party. One might say Tom Steyer on the left now is developing that same type of network. I don't want to speak ill of the RNC chair, but I don't understand why you would escalate any sort of confrontation or speak ill of an outside organization that does spend tens, probably hundreds of millions of dollars helping to elect Republicans. And it's their choice who they wish to support. I believe the Koch brothers take issue with right now the administration's position on immigration, on trade, and on spending. They're allowed to do it. It's a free country. If we go back to the Citizens United decision, it's free speech. And so I don't understand what the purpose of doing that is.
The Koch network saying that they will support candidates based on their policies, that this will also be not necessarily affiliated with parties. So does it make sense to you, even if they decide to support Democratic candidates in the future?
I would say it makes sense for them to support candidates who support the policies that they care about. Regardless of political party. There are probably more organizations support one political party or another. There's not as many organizations that are a hybrid approach or a bipartisan. But I don't think that this, listen, let me say this to you. I don't think that this midterm election is going to turn on which side has more money. The real issue is going to be the intensity gap. There's more than enough money out there. It's going to be getting your voters to the polls. And the electorate right now is so highly engaged. Democrats right now are enjoying a bit of an intensity gap over Republicans. But both sides are going to have more than enough money heading into November.